Hey guys, it's Ginger on Wheels here. Thanks for stopping by another video where today we're going to be addressing the suspension on the Kaabo lineup. As you might have seen last week, they came out with the Kaabo Wolf King GT-R, which does have reasonable rear suspension, but unfortunately, the last 3 years or 4 years, they've been selling the Kaabo scooters, the Wolfs, that have trash rear suspension. The 11 Plus, the 11X, the little mini Wolf, the King, the GT over here, they all have really bad rear suspension. It's way underweighted for the weight of the scooter plus a rider, and the bushings they put in there are way too weak and act as a bump stop and get destroyed almost immediately. So, as I said, I'm gonna be addressing the suspension problems on the King, the 11 Plus, and the GT we've got right here. There's a kit for sale on pevfirelight.com, and you can upgrade the suspension with stiffer bushings and stiffer rear suspension, and it actually gives you more travel and more swing, and it's like a lot more comfortable. I've been riding it with the GT for the last couple hundred miles, and I'm in love with it. I chose the ultra weight kit because I'm like 225 pounds now, but the green springs are gonna be going on here. Those are the heavyweight kit, and I'm gonna be doing an install video today. So I'll show you how it's done. Maybe you can buy a kit for your own scooter and fix your suspension. Okay, so step one is to flip your scooter upside down. This is much easier done with two people, but I'm gonna try and attempt it with one person today because I only have one people here. We're gonna do this. Perfect. You wanna make sure when you lay it down that the bars are as straight as you can get them. If the bars are turned, then the scooter will fall to either side, so beware of that. Okay, so with our scooter flipped over, you can see this is the back rear. That red thing right there, those are our springs for the suspension. So what we need to do is take off this little holder that holds the springs in and pop the new ones in. It's really easy, it takes about 15 minutes, so let's get to it. Step one is to remove this screw or this bolt right here. Not the inner one that's covered by the frame, but the outer one. You remove this one, and then there's one on the other side that's the same size, and one of them is actually a pin, and the other is a bolt, and they come apart like this, and then they slide out. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so you wanna get two size 8 metric Allen wrenches, and you wanna stick them in those bolts I told you about. I've got one over here and one over here. And then you're gonna turn them in opposite directions. And you'll see it looks like this side is the pin side and that side is the bolt side. So I'm going to, the pin side moves a lot easier than the bolt side. So I'm sure you can see, the bolt's under tension from the weight of the rear tire. So here's what the bolt looks like. There is a bolt, this is from Kaabo. There's a washer against the bolt in the frame, and then there's the bolt. So this is the other side of the scooter here. You can see what this looks like. That's the hole, that's where the screw goes in, this little like grub screw. But there's a pin inside this shaft, I guess it is a shaft in itself. We're gonna pull this out the other side. We're gonna take something smaller than a size 8 hex wrench, like this size 6 hex wrench, stick it down into the hole and then bash the end of it with a hammer, while simultaneously lifting up on the rear tire to take some of the weight off or pressure off of the pin here. And then it's gonna slide out the other side. So here it is, this is the big pin that comes out and this is the bolt that holds it in the other side. They just connect together like that. There's threads in the end of the pin and the bolt screws in, but we took those off. So this is what our suspension looks like now, and as you can see, or maybe not, there are two small Allen wrench screws in here. I believe they're size 5, so we're gonna grab that now. So now what you wanna do is unscrew these two screws. There's one here and one here. Just take them all the way out. Here's a good teaching point. Inside these bolts might be a little bit of dirt because this is where all the dirt flies around. So make sure you use something small like a needle or an end of a needle nose plier or something to scrape out the little hole that the tool goes in that screw. So if there's dirt in there and you try and screw it or unscrew it anyways, you'll probably strip it. Oh, I did it. Okay, so we got both the screws out. I just unscrewed them, and this is our rear suspension, what it looks like now from the factory. Check out our bushings. I'll show you what I was talking about, why the suspension is so trash. This is the bushing right here. You can see it's totally destroyed. And Kaabo's been putting those out for 3 years because these springs are too weak. So today we're gonna fix the bushings and the springs. Just get rid of that. Wow, this spring is actually stuck to the scooter. How's that possible? Look at this bushing. It's smashed all the way up into, that's crazy. I think the bushing's like melted onto the scooter. Can I hammer that off maybe? What on earth? This bushing got so smashed that it like borderline melted to the scooter. Wow, look at that. The little washer that they used smashed all the way up inside the bushing. I guess it acts as a bump stop, but they call it a bushing. Anyway, that's trash. I recommend throwing away the 2 washers that came with it because I think they're garbage too. And also these bolts the 2 bolts that we unscrewed right here, throw these away because they're trash also. I've seen these break before. They claim to be, I don't even know. These claim to be like super strong stainless steel screws, but I've seen these break. So I included those in the kit with the lock washers. So everything we took off is everything that's included in the kit. We got 2 bushings, 2 washers. There's 1 washer in there. And then 2 springs and 2 long bolts with 2 lock washers on the end. That's the kit, and that's what we just took off. So throwing this away. Okay, so here's our new kit. We've got 2 new springs, 2 new bushings, 2 new bolts with lock washers. And then we have the 2 washers that go below the bushings, and that's the whole kit. So what I've got is a spring with a bushing inside of it, and then the washer like that. You're gonna take this bracket apparatus that we washed off and just lower it onto one of the nubs like this. So we've got the washer underneath there, the bushing in the middle, and then the spring on the outside. And we'll do the other one. So then you wanna get your screws with the lock washers on the end like that. 1 lock washer on the end of the long screw, and you put it down the hole, and hopefully it goes through everything inside of there. And then we're gonna take this whole apparatus and screw it back into that frame there. Bump to the camera. So I've got my bracket piece back on there with it all lined up. I'm just gonna take my size 4 and screw these screws back into the frame. Now this part can be a bit tricky because you do have to line the screws up with the holes in the frame without being able to see them. So just kind of push around and guess and check while screwing the Allen wrench and you'll get it in eventually. I just got the left side in. So I'm just gonna wiggle this around and screw and try and find the other screw hole. There it is. Now, if you wanna be really sure that these screws aren't gonna come out, this is probably something I should have done in this video, but you should put a dab of blue Loctite on the end of those 2 bolts. I know I'll be taking this scooter apart as soon as I'm done with the video, so I didn't do that, but you should, because I imagine you don't want these coming out. But you just wanna tighten these screws down until they're snug. You don't wanna tighten them all the way up, because the more you tighten them, the more it actually squishes the spring. So the less travel you'll have in your suspension. It's loose enough to give you travel in the suspension, but just tight enough to hold the bracket in. Okay, I feel like I've got those on pretty tight. Now I'm gonna take my pin that I took out earlier, lift up the tire, and you wanna line these holes, the pin holes, up in this swing arms with the holes in the suspension bracket that we just took out. So line the hole up with the pin, slide the pin back through its magical hole. Hammered my pin back in the other side. I'm gonna take this gold washer that was on this side of the frame, stuff that in there. Take the grub screw, stuff that in there also. And we're gonna go back to the first step, which is the 2 size 8 Allen wrenches right here. And we're just gonna tighten this back up. Okay, got our pin tight. Make sure that's snug. Woo, don't let the scooter fall over, but make sure that pin is tight. Yeah, that's about as tight as it's gonna get. And then your rear suspension has been installed and upgraded. That's all there is to it. All done. Hopefully there wasn't too much heavy breathing into the microphone during that. Getting sweaty in here. So this is what the end of our King scooter looks like. This is the regular Wolf King. You can see we've got another about like 1/2 inch of clearance because I don't screw the screws down as tight as the factory did. And also the bushings are shorter. All right, you guys, hopefully that was pretty straightforward. We just upgraded the suspension on this Kaabo Wolf King, but the kits are for sale on pevfirelight.com if you want to pick one up. I highly recommend you do because your bushings are probably broken. Thanks for watching again, and I'll catch you for the next episode.